Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Lunch with the Library. This program is intended for teens and adults, but today we have a special focus on children's books. Feel free to have everyone join in. If you have questions for our next speakers, leave us a comment. Feel free to tell us if you're reading or what you're reading. And for those more in-depth questions, please call or email the library. On our panel today, we have Mary Beth, Victoria, Sarah, and myself. Full house today. My name is Molly, and I will be moderating this morning. Ladies, I'm going to have you introduce yourselves. Victoria, let's start with you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Victoria, Programming Specialist at the Cedar Rapids Public Library.
Sarah, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm a Materials Librarian for the library. I'm responsible for the collection for both youth and young adult.
Hi, I'm Mary Beth. I'm a Programming Specialist at the Cedar Rapids Public Library. Great to see you all.
All right. Let's see what we have for questions today. We're going to get in touch with our childish side, as I said. So, first off, is there a children's book author that you think appeals to both children and adults? Sarah, I'm going to let you start with this one.
I'm going to go with Oliver Jeffers for that one. I think that he has that sort of appeal in his stories. Stuck and Lost and Found are two of my favorites from him, where not only in his art, but in his storytelling, he tells a story that engages children, but always puts in a little sneaky thing for the parents to keep them invested.
Mary Beth, how about you? Do you have anybody that you have come to mind?
The person that I always think of is Roald Dahl.
Yeah.
I think everyone needs a laugh, and I love those books because the child always wins, and Matilda's one of my favorites. Danny, Champion of the World, just love that. And another one is Mark Twain. I like those classics.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And Victoria, how about you?
Well, I would have to agree with these lovely ladies. I do love both of those books. I did bring one of my Roald Dahl books, but I love pretty much everything in his collection. He was definitely one of my all-time favorite authors growing up. Somebody else that I really love that I think appeals to adults and children is Kate Dicamillo. It's backwards on your screen. But this is my third run through of Flora and Ulysses. I've read it twice with my girl, and now I'm going through it again with my boy. We started with The Miraculous Adventures of Edward Tulane, and I just think as an adult you just can really empathize and get in with the characters that she's creating, and oftentimes for a child you're just learning how to deal with some of those emotions, and so it's a great way to unpack some of those things. Other authors I would say that come to mind, Peg Carrot. We just got done reading Small Steps about when she got polio, so we really enjoyed that one, and I think that one really appealed to both. And then Christopher Paul Curtis, he wrote The Watsons Go to Birmingham, and Bud Not Buddy, I think he's written quite a lot, but I think his stories and his characters really appeal to both children and adults as well.
I'm mostly going to stay out of the answering for today. But I do want to just say I really enjoy Brian Selznick, and especially his art books like Hugo Cabret. I think those are really touching for any age group and really easily accessible. So, okay, let's see. Mary Beth, I'm going to have you start with this one. Do you feel like children's books have evolved since you were a child? Or are different? Mm-hmm.
Yes, I think they have. Although, I did not grow up reading that much. I think by the time my parents got to me, I was the sixth child. I think they were super tired. And so I didn't really grow up reading that much. But when I look at some of the older books, compare them with the new, I do feel like there's a relevance today to children's lives that probably wasn't there when I was a kid.
Victoria, how about you?
I would say, looking back on those golden classics, definitely I think illustrations have evolved. I think STEAM has definitely become more of an idea in even baby board books. And I think even though we still have a ways to go, just the diversity of books. When I was a kid going to the library, there might have only been like a certain section on a certain group of people, whereas now, I know certainly in our library, we definitely have a lot of, diverse books in our collection. And I think that's one of the greatest things that I've seen happen with children's books. Kudos.
Thanks.
Sarah, last but not least, did you want to speak on that some more?
Yeah, Victoria, that was pretty much both parts of my answer. I think that the biggest shift in books has been in the content of them and who's being represented. There's still a very long way to go to make sure that we have including a more inclusive book industry, so that we have more inclusive books and stories for people of our communities. But steps have been made, and I'm happy to see that progress. On the other end, I was also going to talk about illustrations. I think that there's been a really great shift away from just splashes of color from the 80s through the early 2000s to today, where it feels like illustrating a picture book is now an art. You just look at the work of Chris Van Allsburg, Jumanji, Polar Express, and you see such beautiful, rich textures, and it's art. And I think illustrators are finally getting their due.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. Mary Beth, you talked about this a little bit, and so we're going to dive deeper into how did you interact with books as a child? Were you a reader? Did you read with your family? How did reading happen for you? And let's go to Victoria first for this one, and then we'll talk to Mary Beth, and then Sarah. Sorry, you're last again. I apologize.
Reading for me was something that my parents always pressed, but it wasn't necessarily that it was something that they were engaged in. It was often just something that I would do on my own, kind of gravitate towards myself. I remember as a child going to the library, this tiny little branch library in England, and getting a pile of books, and one day the dog came in and got muddy paw prints all over everything, and I just thought I would be banished from the library and I would never get to go back and read again. So I read those books over and over again until finally my dad said, we're just gonna have to take these books back. And so it was definitely just something that I like to do on my own. I kind of recharge on my own, and so reading just kind of goes hand in hand with that.
Mary Beth, over to you.
Well, as I said, I didn't really grow up reading, which I know is an anomaly here with you women, but I really didn't. I didn't really enjoy reading until I was a teenager. Mm-hmm. And then I think it just became such a comfort for me and a way for me to dive into worlds that were so foreign to me. So I don't know. Did I answer your question, Molly?
Yeah, I did. I think you did. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, there were always books around, but they always belonged to my brothers and sisters. Mm-hmm. And so, I didn't grow up reading.
Mm-hmm. Sarah, how about you?
My story is, I don't know, it's different. It's mine. Reading was never a family activity. I'm the oldest of four, but I don't remember being read to. I remember being a precocious reader, and so did a lot of independent reading. And I remember, I think it was first grade, my teacher was reading the first Boxcar Children book to the class, and it wasn't moving fast enough because we had to go do other things. And so I checked it out at the library and finished it because I wanted to know what the rest of the story was. And I just remember plowing through those books over the next couple of years. And then I think my grandfather was visiting, and he was a big John Grisham fan. And he left his book on the table. And so I started reading John Grisham, you know, 4th, 5th grade. And, like, kept going through legal thrillers through middle school. And so now, as an adult, I am reading Roald Dahl for the first time because I skipped that whole chapter.
Mm-hmm. I think that's one of the unique things that I noticed as a child, is that it went from very little children's books straight up to very, very adult books. I was having this conversation with another library employee just recently too, that there wasn't really anything in the middle. For me, what reading was at our house is I don't remember being read to quite often. Like, if I went to Grandma and Grandpa's house, then I would get read to there. But I didn't really get read to that I remember by my parents, but I always saw them reading, and there were always books in the house. And that made such a difference too, because it was like, I would see all these bookshelves and all the books, and it was like a magical experience. You saw all of these things that, oh, that's what I get to do someday. It's just all right there. And, oh, hi. But there's also a really funny difference between how my mom reads books and how my dad reads books. So if I went to that shelf, I could always tell Dad's books are the pristine ones, and Mom's are the ones with the covers bent all the way back and broken and sad looking. All right, let's go to our next question. Sarah, I'm going to start with you this time. Yay! So, did you ever look up to a book character when you were a child? Now I'm afraid of your answer.
I'm gonna go with the folks from the Boxcar Children. I remember being captivated by their independence. Like, oh, children can do that? What? They can solve mysteries. They can live outside. So I remember being captivated by that. And in fact, I wrote on that for my library school admission essay. But otherwise, I don't know what the characters of John Grisham or Robert Lytham's work were inspiring in me.
Victoria, let's go ahead and go over to you.
I would probably have to go with Matilda, or Charlie from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I just love the way Roald Dahl had some kind of redemption for the characters. You know, Matilda was teeny. Her parents thought they knew everything. She had the power of books, and with that knowledge, she was able to, you know, transform her own life and other people's. And I don't know, I just think as a child, like, knowing that you have some kind of control over your life, or knowing that, you know, you can be bigger than your circumstances, was just such a powerful idea for me. And the same with Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, just, you know, this humble little boy, just, you know, only gets a couple of chances at the golden ticket, but, you know, his virtue and his values shine through. And I don't know, I just love that stuff. I eat it up.
Awesome. Hey, Beth?
It just occurred to me that all those girls in Little Women were heroes to me, in each in their own way. They were all so independent. They were fully fleshed characters. I loved reading about them, and I gobbled up that whole series when I finally found it. You know, Eight Cousins and Joe's Boys and Little Men. I just loved them. They were, they had it all going on. I just loved it. And I really romanticized that time of life. It was probably terrible, you know, but I really did romanticize the history of it.
Mm-hmm. For me, I think that you bringing up Little Women made me realize my answer was going to be Ella Enchanted. I love that book. I love her, you know, it's strong female character, finding creative ways to problem solve. Like, there you go. I read that book so many times, I actually ended up covering it with construction paper to keep it from falling apart. But then I think about I used to watch the Anne of Green Gables like miniseries with my mom all the time when I was a kid, but it wasn't until I was an adult that I actually read the book and realized how much I loved her too. And that Little Women makes me think of Anne of Green Gables and just like strong female characters. It's great. That was kind of the summary I got there. Okay. So we're going to move to our last question here. And it's kind of our fun wrap-up question. Okay. Tell us about if you were a book. What would you be? What genre? Who would your characters be? Okay. So I'll let you think about that for a second. And I think, Victoria, we're probably going to start with you for this last one.
Oh, okay. I don't know. I think I would be part like Jenny Lawson and David Sedaris mixed together. I really appreciate how in dark times or even just in regular times, they're able to lift you up. Jenny Lawson, battling with mental illness and just having like a way that is kind of droll and hilarious at the same time. I'm not comparing these to me at all, but I'm just kind of thinking about things that I kind of revel in when I look at books. David Sedaris is just like so droll and sarcastic, and I don't know, I guess it would be what I would aspire to be in a book, not necessarily who I am as a book.
I like that. Sarah, how about you?
Oh,
Hard one.
It's supposed to be the fun one.
I was hoping to not have to answer this one. I would hope to be, or to have my story told in the style of Lucy Measley. She's a graphic novelist, memoirist. She's published a handful of books now across age groups, just stories from her life. And I think I appreciate not only the art of her work, but the way she tells a story and doesn't gloss over the bad parts, the scary parts, the sad parts, or the mistakes she's made. Uses them as lessons, but also that's not where the story ends. She always makes sure to say what happens next. And I think that's really important when you have those bad moments, that you have good ones too.
Lovely. Hey, Beth?
Well, I think I'd be a J.K. Rowling book. I think there would be a lot of magical creatures and loyal friends and a wonderful community that I belong to. I also think that I would, have some things I'd have to overcome every once in a while, and make mistakes along the way. Hopefully I can tie it up in a neat little package in the end like she does.
I believe in you.
I was thinking sort of the same lines there, Mary Beth. And see, I said I wasn't going to answer, and then I did because, well, it's exciting to talk about books with your friends. But I was thinking that, ironically, I would probably be a middle grade book where I'm figuring it out. We're probably set in a fantasy realm, and there's probably some big bad problem. I don't know. That's a metaphor for something. But yeah, we'd have our best friends hanging out, and we'd go on adventures together, and that'd be my book, I think. And I don't know. Would you have it all wrapped up nicely at the end? Sometimes I'm a fan of unhappy endings too, but who knows? Middle grade doesn't really do that so often, but all right. So that wraps everything up. Does anyone have any closing remarks that they thought about, or after a question was answered they wanted to share, or anything like that? Okay. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. We really appreciate it. Again, if you do have any questions for our next presenters, feel free to drop those in the comments or just engage with the conversation there. We'll see you next week. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.